Animes that really changed the way that I perceived like the whole medium and its potential and the type of stories that it could tell. You know what? Whatever. A lot of my personal favorites are probably gonna be some basic bitch choices, but I don't care. I think about Madoka Magica, JoJo's, Hunter x Hunter, Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann. Hell, even more recently, I'll be honest, I think Chainsaw Man is substantially better than Jujutsu Kaisen. But there's going to be a whole lot of caveats to that I will go into later. So as stated initially, I definitely let myself get like way too hyped leading up to it. I was really expecting kind of like the next big step in anime storytelling, the next big step in just anime as a progression and medium and some artsy fartsy stuff like that. What I got was one okay season with some interesting stuff happening in the background, and then a really good second half of a second season. So right off the bat, the whole Shibuya incident stuff, that is where it fully grabbed me, and that's when the whole show, I guess for lack of a better phrase, clicked for me. But I personally do not like that it took me that long to get there. After I was all done and all caught up, while I was still kind of just figuring out my thoughts, I did what any normal and rational anime fan would do and put out your opinion on TikTok. Yeah, the people on TikTok, they obviously were not picking up what I'm putting down, but in their defense, I probably could have thought out my statement, my thesis a little bit better. Now I will go ahead and just play for you guys really quick. So follow me on TikTok, because that's honestly where I start kind of spitballing a lot of my ideas before I start making a video about it. So if that seems interesting to you and you want to see my miniatures and all the other cool stuff that I 3D print and paint, then yeah, follow me on TikTok. But anyways, here's my statement that I initially made. So here's at least kind of some initial context. It's only a minute long, so just hit the skip 10 seconds thing, hit that 6 times, or hit it 12 times. All right, I'm just gonna say it and I'm gonna rip this band-aid off. I don't get the hype. I do not get the hype. Like, I get it's a whole genre deconstruction and stuff like that, but I mean, like, we have JoJo's, we have Madoka Magica, we have Hunter x Hunter, we have Chainsaw Man. In my opinion, all of those did the same thing better. Like, I shouldn't have had to wait until the Shibuya arc to really give a damn about anything that was going on in this story. And like, mind you, I have 4 kids, so a lot of the watching that I do is kind of in a tablet in the background while I'm cooking or cleaning or just doing other things, because I don't have time to sit down and watch it. And the only time where I actually cared enough to actually sit down and dedicate some time was in the final bunch of the Shibuya arc. And also, like, what's up with this Gojo obsession? We have all the JoJos, we have Dio, we have So yeah, I think the main reason that I got so much negative backlash was because of the fact that, you know, it's the hot new thing, and the kids are all hyped about the hot new thing now. I think this was honestly just one of those things that made me realize, oh my god, I am getting old. Because my whole idea is that Jujutsu Kaisen, really good. The action sequences, the Sakuga, oh my god, yes, mwah. But at the same time, I'm looking at a lot of these story beats and I'm looking at a lot of these plot lines, and I'm able to draw some very direct parallels between, you know, just those previous animes that I mentioned. And even when they subvert it, like the whole explaining your power to make it more powerful thing, which once again, I was expecting more of that. That was really, I was kind of expecting something along those lines. Maybe like a JoJo-esque take on that. And once again, that's probably on me. But I think it also kind of speaks to the fact that you kind of need to obviously do a little bit more research to kind of get an idea of what you're getting into when taking suggestions from media, from other people, even if they are somebody that you really know and trust, like Jeff Fu, professional shitbag. And like, especially in regards to anime, because, you know, me being a dumbass American, it's hard for me to remember a lot of these names. But once again, to Chainsaw Man, 12 episodes, I can at least remember Denji and Makima, and just, I can remember the characters characters better, but barely remember the names of people in Jujutsu Kaisen. I only remember Gojo because of all the weird nastiness memes that I see on the internet about him. I've been there with the Joestars, so who am I to judge at this point? And that's once again where it keeps coming back to me. I'm having a reverse Seinfeld effect moment here. For those of you who don't know, the Seinfeld effect is a TV trope thing where basically if you go back and watch the show Seinfeld, there's a pretty good chance you might not think that the show's funny, and you'll sit there wondering, hey, why was this so popular back in the day? And it's because so many things have taken a lot of the lessons and a lot of the key elements that made Seinfeld great, and were able to take them and kind of insert their own variations of comedy and points of view and opinions and stuff like that into them. So because of that, people will watch Seinfeld and be like, I feel like I've seen this before a million times, and not even just in the references. And I think that's kind of how I feel about Jujutsu Kaisen. It's really good. I can understand where it draws its influences from. I can understand where it is subverting the traditional shonen formula, but it's not just hooking me like I was wanting it to. To go back to Chainsaw Man, first and foremost, I ended up reading the first story arc of Chainsaw Man before the anime came out, so I know that is probably insanely crucial into why I'm probably not feeling the story as like a lot of like manga readers are, because of the fact that I know what's gonna happen in Chainsaw Man, and the stuff that's gonna happen in Chainsaw Man, oh my god, you are never gonna want to celebrate birthdays again. I'm just gonna say that. I can understand the hype and the excitement, and that is why I am more than happy waiting for just another 12 episodes, with the first 12 episodes only ending in like the first couple chapters of the manga. So I can completely understand if that's also part of the reason why it's just not clicking with me, is because of the fact that I don't know what's gonna happen. On top of that, I think the whole reason that I started watching was because everyone just could not stop talking about the Shibuya incident, and I kind of had a slight idea. I did a pretty good job of not having everything spoiled, but I had an idea of what was happening. I had an idea of what their objectives were in that mission. So I guess, there was probably also a part of my brain that was sitting there just kind of like, yeah, but what about Shibuya? And also in my defense, they mention Shibuya pretty early. They say, hey, we got to get Yuji ready and all that because, all the curses or whatever want to do an attack. They're talking about doing a Shibuya. They're doing the roll call and everything. Not to compare protagonists, but I'm going to compare protagonists. Denji versus Yuji, I'm sorry, but I feel like Yuji is literally the blankest slate possible for a protag-kun. His whole story was his grandpa died, told him to get friends, and so he's going out and doing that. And I'm having a hard time finding that more compelling than Denji and Puchita giving up their lives for each other, as opposed to the exchange of, hey, this random kid accidentally got some fingers in his mouth and then now he's got the devil inside him. And also the world building between the two, and this is all going to be also personal preference, but I personally like the idea of the devils and the strength of the devils being based on people's fear of that thing. But I am also an American, so the whole gun devil, that has a very fucked up special place in my heart. But the future devil, oh my god, I cannot wait for you guys to meet the future devil. The future is awesome, so it's gonna be worth the wait. Some of the final chapters or some of the final volumes in the last part of Chainsaw Man, absolutely batshit insane, and they explicitly say that it is and then go balls to the wall with it. And yeah, oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. And another thing that I couldn't stop thinking about was probably my number one anime manga series of all time. Once again, basic bitch taste story here, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have yet to find a series that has impacted me in so many ways the way that JoJo has. And I would also argue that I've yet to find the series that has impacted pop culture the way JoJo has. You could definitely say something like Naruto or Sailor Moon. I would definitely say that those are really big candidates for this discussion. But I mean, up until this point, until we had Jordan B. Peterson doing Naruto for, what was it Gucci or Prada? Having JoJo doing the whole Gucci line with Jolene, that was peak nerd moment for me at the time right there, learning about that. That was when I knew that, like, I found something that was truly going to be in some way a cultural touchstone and some sort of culture point going forward. And also at the time, everyone was doing memes about gay vampires and stuff, so like nothing ever really changes at the end of the day. And while I know that it's also the point, the changing of the end credits from season 1 to season 2, I get it, but I still feel like JoJo's did it better. And maybe it's because they used, licensed music and languages I can understand, but at the same time, like, Last Train Home is the end credit song for the 3rd season JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders. For those of you who haven't heard this story, I'm gonna make this very brief. Basically, Jotaro, Joseph, and the homies go across Egypt, beating up all sorts of stand users and cheating at poker and doing some very questionable things with babies and each other and metal objects. At the end of the day, at the end of the journey, only 2 people made it home. As things are starting to escalate and as this conclusion is starting to draw near, one where you know that before the end of it you're going to be losing a handful of your favorite bros, the song itself goes from one being kind of a stress reliever to one of somber remembrance, one of reminiscing, and I can't think of a song that fits the whole theme of the whole season so well than Last Train Home. That song has become like my go-to thinking about life song now. And also, that's why we have the to be continued memes with Yes, and they did the 90s good with goddamn Savage Garden at the end credits, and then Jodeci freaking you. Like, I'm sorry, if you have an anime using 90s R&B as the end credits, that is automatically going to be a bias for me, no matter what. So once again, I know like all of this is personal bias, but I'm trying to work through some stuff here. So I think the most organized, less jumbled way to do this, after all the rambling that I did in the beginning, would be to kind of talk about some of the main points that were brought up in like the TikTok comments. I'll bring in specific story points, certain mechanics, and once again, this is good shit. I'm enjoying the ride. At the end of season 2 was really good. I'm down for more, but I'm just trying to understand the hype. I'm just trying to actually get a conversation out there on some sort of platform where it's not going to completely devolve into chaos and madness, because if it does, that only just benefits me. And also, it's nice to find people that are old like me that are like, yeah, this is good, but back in my day, we had Master Roshi being problematic and we were okay with it. Let's start with the fearsome womb arc and go to versus Mahito. Right off the bat, I still think that Yuji is a bit of a boring protagonist. I don't really feel much originality in him and his backstory and his motivations in order to like kind of let myself feel invested. And I think this is part of the reason that it took me so long to really get into it. Like when I was seeing the Occult Club, my first thought was Mob Psycho 100 and the Telepathy Club. And while this may be a shonen, it does have, the isekai twist. So he gets isekai'd into the world of curses, and his truck kun is little cocktail wiener sausage, you know? The concept of cursed energy as this show's magic system, I don't know why, it's just not vibing with me. It feels a little bit bland. And this is even including domain expansion as well. To me, it doesn't feel dissimilar from all the devils and the way that they work and manifest in Chainsaw Man. And I feel like in terms of things to build a magic system around, and especially if we're going to relate it to being kind of a subversion, Kill la Kill has clothing as its magic system. JoJo has stands. Madoka Magica has witches. If you know, you know. But I will say that, speaking of Madoka Magica, Jujutsu Kaisen does a pretty good job of sticking to the 3-episode rule. You know, old heads like me probably like to use with their animes. And if you don't know, well, if you don't know, now you know. But the 3-episode rule is essentially, you know, if an anime doesn't hook you within 3 episodes, you should probably ditch it. It does a pretty good job of sticking to the 3-episode rule because of the curse womb that it shows at the end of the episode with the bulletin, you know, saying, oh, we sent out some sorcerers and one died. Like, that's a good hook. That's at least a good way to keep people to keep watching. And now we're at the point where Gojo gets introduced, TikTok's #1 degenerate subject. And I mean, to be quite frank, with the way that everyone talks about Gojo and treats Gojo, once again, this was all in my head. I was kind of expecting more. So yeah, Gojo gets introduced and everyone is talking about how he's the greatest sorcerer of all time and how he can do absolutely anything, and if he really wanted to, he could kill all of Japan in a single blink of an eye. First off, I feel like if you've been watching anime for a not insignificant amount of time, flag alarm should be waving and going off in your head right now. You hear about somebody who is like this powerful and can break the universe and all that, and they are a mentor or just essentially a side character. Like, the second that I heard people just start writing all over Gojo's spiky hair, like, I knew that he was about to get communed, and I was expecting it to hurt. And I'm watching this in my mind as a deconstruction of shonen and shonen anime. I'm having such a hard time really caring about the story being told. And like, while the fight with Jogo, so if I fuck this up, just bear with me. So while the fight with Jogo was really good in terms of just very visceral Sakuga starting to get kind of just like a measurement of how far power can go in this world, like, the one thing I will give this show, yes, animation is absolutely great. The direction that the episodes take, like, a lot of this stuff is really good. It's really, really good. Like, stuff I'm very impressed with. Like, Jogo's ass kicking had the impact and velocity and just overall brutality that I wish that I could take and insert into old episodes of Dragon Ball Z. You know, the stuff that I had growing up. That, like, Dragon Ball Z was my Jujutsu Kaisen for the same time, and for others it was probably Naruto was their Jujutsu Kaisen, and that might be the whole point about this video. But with everything that I've seen with these fights so far, I didn't feel like we earned anything we saw. It feels like, to me personally, I got 8 episodes of dungeon master like world building, where you're just taking different parts from other pieces of inspiration that you know, and then just kind of mashing it together into something that you can kind of tweak and kind of warp enough to call, you know, wholly your own. Like, it's still all original, but I mean, all good artists steal. It's not a bad thing at all. This is why people like Pal World right now. And yeah, I'm gonna say it. Jujutsu Kaisen is Pal World. And I mean that in the best way, because I enjoy both. But they also have things about them that I really feel like critiquing right now. Like, it takes us until episode 8 for us to experience our first infamous JJK jump. And from the way that people talked about these instances and the way that, you know, people would like meme about them on TikTok and stuff, I was expecting there to be like just people randomly getting jumped in the streets all the time, like a really bad neighborhood. Like I thought that Yuji, when he was going to be, you know, initiated into jujutsu high school, I thought that they were gonna like, you know, beat him in like they would in a gang, you know, blood in, blood out. 8 episodes, like I said, so, you know, people may say it takes about 8 episodes to really get the ball rolling, but you know what happened in 8 episodes of Gurren Lagann? We got Kamina getting the absolute worst back shots of his life after sealing the deal with Yoko and declaring himself the new Riz King after dethroning Baby Gronk. Like, I witnessed that for the first time years ago, like closer to 10 years than not. His death still impacts me to this day. I still think about that, and I still think about him and the impact that he had on his little brother. I don't know what to say really, other than like I felt more in those 8 episodes of Gurren Lagann than I did in the 8 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I feel like I'm not crazy at all for comparing the two and everything that's happened between the two and being like, yeah, this is pretty good, but, you know, this impacted me more. Now we finally have the introduction of my personal favorite character, Aoi Todo. Like, basically me IRL. Like, I'm pretty sure this dude might be black-coded. Jennifer Lawrence preference aside. He comes off as a little black-coded. I don't know why. It's probably the swagger. Also, I will say it was finally nice to see the introduction of guns into this world. I will say, adding guns with magic, it's nice to see that outside of a Brandon Sanderson novel. That's for sure. And now I've also had Mahito introduced to me, which I will at least say, you know, he's interesting. I understand why people stan him. I get it. He's hot. I will also say another character I really fucks with is nanamis. The fact that he fights curses because that's better than working for a corporation, billion-dollar corporation. Boy, that's pretty much like been my life for the past 10 years. Not the curse fighting, obviously, but, you know, soul-sucking corpo job. Yeah. Because I would rather make videos complaining about anime that I am above average on than have to work another soul-sucking corpo job again. So, like, share, and subscribe, even if you don't agree with me on this video. Also, the rug pull with Junpei, like, that was pretty good, but like at the same time, it's one of those things where I wasn't surprised at all. Like, he literally decided to make a deal with the devil to get powers. He made a Faustian bargain, I believe is the correct term for that. So while it would have been cool to been like, oh hey, through the power of friendship we can defeat these curses, especially after the conversation that they had, which was pretty interesting. Him basically becoming like a Jim Henson puppet or something like that. Like, and while I really appreciated, you know, the whole moment of you're supposed to say exercise, it's like, oh no, I want to kill you guys. That was definitely a good Hunter x Hunter-esque moment, but once again, it didn't feel earned. I didn't feel like I had enough time to make these connections, despite the fact that I'm like almost 12 episodes in now. So the Goodwill event was good. It's when I really kind of started getting what I was expecting the show to be from the get-go, but I couldn't really help but think about Hunter x Hunter's reverse tournament arc. And I think for me, the reason that I can't help but compare the two is because of kind of what they represent at that point in the story, and like they both kind of come up around the same time, so to speak. We have our protagonist starting starting to get a grasp on their powers. They know that other people have different abilities and they've seen it in action, but now it's kind of like this is when the breadth of the power system is started to be explored a bit. Like with Hunter x Hunter, that's when we get a really good breakdown on Nen and how it works and how it can be manipulated and how other people can really use different aspects of Nen to do some really crazy stuff. And what's really interesting about Nen is that once the Chimera Ant arc starts, it really takes all of that foundation and really like builds upon it and even is able to expand on something that we thought that we had a pretty good understanding of. And even up until the point like when it was introduced, it's a pretty balanced system on paper, all things considered. As weird as it may sound, the way that Nen works actually reminds me a lot of Team Fortress 2 and the way that power is kind of distributed between all 9 classes. If you are a good enough player, then you can use any class to counter any other class, so to speak. There is no true strongest class in a game like TF2. It's all about how you use your tools and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like that's very similar to how Nen is to a certain degree. I'm sure there's like 5 of you that completely get what I'm talking about right now. And I think that's something that I'm kind of missing right now in regards to how cursed energy works. Maybe I missed it while watching the show, but if I did, leave a comment down below. Like, I've been trying to do some research while recording this video too. But I guess you can look at a person's Nen abilities and their different kind of, I guess, sub-abilities, and you can kind of see how that came out of their personality. For Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm having a hard time kind of seeing that parallel. But like I said, there might have been a couple things that I missed. I just felt like the Goodwill event was a really missed opportunity on explaining some of the intricacies of domain expansion and kind of clarifying on how some of it works. And I mean, maybe they did, but it just wasn't done to a degree that I was kind of hoping for. And Todo, once again, continues to be a man of absolute peak culture. He has probably become my favorite character in this show, way more than Yuji. I feel like he's kind of a perfect encapsulation of my favorite type of shonen characters. The ones where they can be serious and they can be angry and they can be vengeful, but they are also completely themselves in like their likes and interests. Honestly, he kind of reminds me of like a Joestar or somebody that would be in the universe of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And that's probably why I love him so much. And his ability Boogie Woogie actually is really cool and was one of the really first interesting abilities. That nanamis, that one was pretty cool too. Those were probably the first abilities where the gears started turning in my brain in regards to some of the possibilities. And I mean, maybe ironically or not ironically, that was around the time where they started kind of showing what you can do when combining some of these abilities together in more obtuse ways, in ways that I would say is very, very close to like a JoJo's or a Hunter x Hunter battle. Your ability is only a means to execute your strategy, because at least from what I can recall, a lot of those battles came down to not just punching the hardest, but also either playing mind games or setting your enemy up for failure, setting yourself up for success, and other things like that. And you know what, not hot take, but I think that ability names in Jujutsu Kaisen kind of suck. Some of them are cool, like Boogie Woogie, but once again, personal bias, I will say it is absolutely great the first time that you watch JoJo's with the subtitles, not the dub, and you start hearing all of these band names and references and stuff like that, and you're just sitting there the whole time like, I can't believe they got away with that. And especially when you get to Stone Ocean, when like the whole final chunk of the series takes place like by Disneyland, and they start bringing in all these copyrighted characters, is absolutely wild. But yeah, no, JoJo's stand names and ability names and stuff like that, I'm sorry, they are just better. Nothing's ever gonna beat Notorious B.I.G. Also, to kind of round out this arc, because I still have to talk about Gojo's past and the Shibuya incident, the action and animation and everything right now is just so good and fantastic, and I would definitely say like peak modern Sakuga with all the technology and everything that we've learned at hand, but it still just does not feel earned in the way that I wanted it to. I don't know why, probably once again because I'm old, but I start thinking about the scene with Vegeta, the first time that he goes Super Saiyan, and he's standing in the rain, and Phil Collins is playing in the background in the air tonight. I mean, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I mean, it's much better in my head with this anyways. But you have Vegeta standing there in the rain looking up, and you know, you got the music going. It's like, can you remember? And then the build up happens, and then you hear the drums, and then you just see him go, and then he turns blonde. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, probably because I was not even because I was an adolescent. I still watch that scene now and I get hyped. It's just, I feel like it was an earned moment. That was an earned moment for Vegeta. That was an earned moment for the Saiyan race. And like, we got to witness it. So that was earned for us. We saw how long it took for him to get to that level. Alright, so finally I got to the point where we are going over Gojo's past, and this is the point where I realized that I'm finally getting some good fucking content. Like, this whole arc was the type of character building that I was looking for, and I actually started to care about the characters for once. Wow, crazy, huh? I think the main reason that this one actually pulled me in a lot more is that this arc differs from the others in terms of its execution and its deliberateness. Like, so much of the atmosphere and the conversations and the subject matter of this arc really reminded me actually of the Star Wars prequels. It reminded me a lot of the conversations that Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi would have, you know, early on when they were doing a lot more of the training and stuff. Or for those of you who are like deep into the Star Wars lore, it reminds me a lot of Qui-Gon Jinn and Count Dooku and their relationship, especially if you read the book where it talks about, you know, how Dooku fell from the Jedi Council to the dark side. But stories like that, those are the types of structural deconstructions that I really personally dig. No pun intended. If I had a nickel for every anime that I've seen that had some sort of weird looping hallway, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is pretty weird that it happened twice. Also, for anyone who didn't understand Kanda Tengen and his role in the whole universe, it really seems like to me that he's basically just the emperor of mankind, you know, absorbing psychers to keep the warp under control and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like cursed energy is a lot like warp energy. So Warhammer fans that also really know a lot about JJK, let me know down below. I will say it was pretty interesting to set up Geto as the big bad and then give him a tragically humble backstory. Though I feel like it is kind of juxtaposed against the fact that it's a cursed spirit or a demon or whatever the hell you want to call it. But it's one of those that is controlling him, so you can't really say that everything that happened was off of Geto or his principles. Like, they set it up so you kind of started to discern that, but then when you think about it, that curse may have had his memories, but I don't feel like it had his motivations and intuition. Like, I feel like this arc might have been the closest thing that the show might have to filler, and for one of the first times in my life, I think I prefer the filler. I understand so much more about the relationship between Gojo and Geto and the way that Gojo acts now, especially in the that he's got such a loud, bombastic personality. Everything's gonna be fine, but he also keeps his students at arm's length, but you know, still close enough that he can bring them in for a hug. And I appreciate the fact that I can actually understand Gojo and a lot of his motivations, and I actually understand how his mind works now instead of him just basically being a deus ex machina. I got to learn a little bit about him as a planner and a strategist, which was pretty cool. I now understand and realize that Gojo is smarter than Goku and not just a really strong dummy. Like, even the ending to that arc hit me and impacted me a lot harder than some of the others in that show, because the fact that despite it being a speedrun of a really good plot twisty anime story arc, it was still paced really well. Like Gojo wanting the Star Platinum to just be a kid for a day and to just hang out and have fun. That whole scene was very beautiful, very well done. And once again, it made the ending feel that much earned. It made the emotions that I felt earned, because I had time to actually build up a little bit of a repertoire with these characters. And it was just so nice to just see everyone take a break from the constant curses of very urgent urgency. I know that they do time skips and all that to kind of get going to the action, but man, I wish there was a little bit more filler. And Toji Fushgara works really well for being a villain that's in such a short arc, because they took the 2 minutes that they needed to set up his motivation, set up his connection to the wider jujutsu universe, and actually give him, like a name, unlike that random butcher dude or the other blonde guy who did get a name, but it wasn't literally until like he was dying. And also the subversion of, friendship overcoming everything, overcoming the force of the universe itself. Like, that was a good rug pull. That was a really good rug pull. I am not gonna lie. It was much better than the other one with, was it Junpei? Once again, Junpei's fall or death or whatever you want to call it, didn't feel that earned. Also, the cult using Curse User to use a reincarnation of Tengu as a means of being able to continue their capitalist religion is one of those things that, while not unexpected from anime, was still very nice to see. Very based, very cool, great job. Geto is basically just a fallen Jedi, isn't he? Like, everything that I've seen about him just screams Anakin and Kylo Ren. Being able to see Geto in kind of the way that he broke off from the rest of the jujutsu sorcerers and kind of broke away from that lifestyle while still kind of pursuing some of the foundational ideas, very Fallen Jedi coded, and I really appreciated that. That writing felt a lot more deliberate. I finally got to the Shibuya incident. This was like the thing I was waiting for this whole time. The whole scene, or I guess, that whole episode. Oh, it's like that, huh? Like, that had me rolling. This was what I was talking about with filler being good. Being able to see these high school kids be kids for a couple minutes, that does so much to make me feel way more connected to these characters. And it took me up until the second half of the second season to have a moment like this. All three of the main Scoobies actually feel like teens who fight curses, not curse fighters who happen to be teens. And with Mahito coming back with a vengeance and the death of Mekamaru, or the ass kicking, whatever. But the whole battle with Mekamaru, it just once again proves my point that some of these deaths, some of these battles, as impactful as they are, at the same time, they don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. I feel like the Game of Thronesification of a lot of modern media, where in order to set up the stakes, you need to start killing off people. I feel like it's something that we kind of take for granted now, and we're almost at the point now that the subverted expectation is now the expectation. And Gojo's capture once again works so well, and it hits you and catches you off guard just like it did him, because it was earned. We knew that this was pseudo Geto's plan the entire time, but when Gojo heard his voice, we all felt the exact same thing. Despite the fact that you probably knew in the back of your head that these two characters would talk again over the course of this arc, it still was surprising to actually see the moment happen. We know about the history of these two, we watched, their relationship build, we watched the fallout of that relationship, we watched the incident that caused that relationship to fall out. We saw the aftermath of both of them going different paths in life now because of of this one incident. I will say I'm not really a fan of the fact that it was technically a spirit taking over his body. It just, if it would have been like the manifestation of his spirit or something like that, just like Megami's dad, I think that would have been pretty cool. It's like he came back to finish his mission, or if those girls had somehow used curse energy to bring him back, and I think that would have made his revival more tragic. I think that would have made the quote-unquote mistake of reviving him something that would have been a lot more impactful, kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you already know that spoiler, but if not, spoilers for Buffy. She dies and they end up bringing her back to life. They think that they're saving her from hell, but it actually turns out, you know, she was in heaven the whole time, and they brought her back to Earth, which is hell. Like, what I'm basically saying is there are layers they could have added that really would have enhanced what was happening, or that I feel like could have enhanced that reveal. And Mahito's pretty obviously supposed to be an agent of chaos, not unlike the Joker. They show the Joker several times, or people dress up as a Joker several times throughout Shibuya, and Mahito just completely doing away with them. I feel like that was intentional, but on top of him reminding me of the Joker, he actually reminds me a lot of Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter as well, except a not as good version of Hisoka. I mean, he's running around causing havoc and destruction and all that for reasons only he knows, you know, because, and all three of them also just have very strong obsessions with the protagonists of their respective stories. And I'm still not a fan of them just bringing in these no-name mercs just to basically be used as cannon fodder. Going back to JoJo's, I'm gonna bring in Golden Wind to be specific, because that's the one I most recently watched. Many of those villains of the week only lasted an episode or two, yeah, but they were still quite memorable. They had abilities that were beyond just kill Protag Kun with magic, and each opponent provided their own set of challenges that the gang or each individual and their abilities both mentally and physically. But this led to them using their techniques in like really new and creative ways that they had to really think outside the box in order to achieve. Also, blood manipulation is just inherently cool in whatever medium it's in, so, you know, kudos to that guy. Also, the fight between Yuji and his blood brother was so good, like excellently directed. I will reiterate that so much of this show is produced awesomely, visually awesome, but it just doesn't feel earned like it did with other stories. And when Toji comes back, like from later in the battles and all that, that was another oh shit moment because of how it was earned. Him coming back to that specific battle was like 3 different plot lines converging at once. It was him showing why he was one of the few people that could actually be a threat to Geto and Gojo. I feel like at this point I've made a pretty good case about what I'm trying to say here. Like I said, season 2 is so much better than season 1, and the back half of season 2 is so much better than the front half, and the front half is really good. Like at this point, this is kind of what I was expecting that the show would be from the get-go. And yes, I understand that it needs to ramp up to that, but the payoffs did not feel earned, and I'm gonna keep saying that till the end of this video. Like the fushgara family fight, that was really awesome stuff, and then it got ruined by that Olsen twin wannabe kid. Yuji's crying after coming back from the transformation and looking at everything and realizing, you know, everything that happened. I can't imagine how messed up it would be watching your body do all those horrible things and possibly feeling it and just not being able to control it at all. Me thinking about that, that feels horrific. But them cutting to him crying and like saying, you know, I want to die, and then cutting to the end credits, it was very Ava coded, and I just couldn't help but bust out laughing because I got the reference. Though at the beginning of the next episode, I feel like it kind of undermined that whole moment by just having that montage of just different conversations and stuff, and him being like, I won't be a murderer. I personally feel like that could have been used for some real self-reflection, or just taking a couple minutes to just been like, what does it really mean to destroy a curse? Or what does it mean to be a jujutsu sorcerer? Nanami's finale, once again, that was earned. We saw him at various stages of his life as a sorcerer, and even, you know, a little slice of him being in the corporate world. And his final moments are a reflection of the values that we've seen him express through his words and his act. Watching him do his final dance and passing on his knowledge and his trust in the future to the next generation, I saw that, and that was very well executed. Why couldn't I get this sooner? And once again, while I appreciate Mahito as an agent of chaos, I guess I don't personally get how he's supposed to be a reflection of humans' fear of, what, death and violence? Or is it the fear of humans going primal in the sense that if left to their own devices, they will eventually become the very monsters that they go out to kill? They become Frankenstein's monster. At the very least, he's a good character in the sense that, like, you know what he represents it well, and he has a philosophy that he is very consistent about sticking to as well, and you actually do want to learn more about him. You want to learn more about his backstory, which is probably the sign of any good character in general. Also, that man can really take an ass kicking, that's for sure. The animators did a fantastic job of just making him look like a ragdoll while getting beaten up. Well, hey, look. Secret Joestar technique. It never misses, huh? I just realized this may be, you know, a character flaw, but I don't understand how Yuko realized that there was a clone and then started chasing after the clone, but didn't think that maybe it was going back to the original or to the double. I don't know. I feel like that should have been the first thing that would have been going off as an alarm. And while I understand why they finally revealed her backstory, it just like, at this point I was like, you're really gonna do this now? When I know that she's dead, when basically you've just confirmed that she's about to get Eddard Starked? Okay. That would have probably made her eye getting ice cream scooped, like, would have made it hit more. And also these self-reflective death scenes, once again, very Ava coded. Not a bad thing, just calling it out, pointing it, calling it like I see it. Also, Yuji's lifeless stare looking at Yuko. In that one frame, you see so much emotion despite the fact that the picture itself is, for lack of a better phrase, like low detailed. And then finally, Mahito comes back and explains the whole point of the show.
I truly am a curse! Black flesh! I bet you thought defeating ghosts like in an old fairy tale! Damn little brat, you're so naive! It's not some fight to correct a mistake! You are me, Yuji. You save people without a second thought, representing my mere opposite! How did you think you'd beat me? Have you counted how many curses you've killed in your lifetime? I bet not. I really couldn't care less about the number of humans I've killed.
Wait. Hold on. Whose theme is that? Wait a minute. It's your boy, Ayoy Todo! Alright, now I love this show again. So Todo comes in, big curse swinging, and instantly Batman's the whole situation. Immediately goes to go kick some ass, and, you know, just ends up with getting the Mechamaru, Yuji. And then Todo finally begins and explains the whole point of the show.
Don't limit yourself to such narrow-mindedness. We are jujutsu sorcerers. As long as we continue to live, our friends who have passed away will not truly have been defeated. Attempting to find meaning in the deaths of the fallen can, at times, defile the memory of those we've lost. You cannot stop moving forward. That is the one punishment imposed on those of us who live as jujutsu sorcerers.
Like, the man is even wearing purple, which is the color of royalty. The dude is a king. Brother is a brother, I'm telling you. Even Mahito calls him black racist names. See? Top-knotted gorilla. Dude is black. At this point, I'm fast forwarding to the end because we're not here to recap the whole story. At this point, I'm at the end of the story. We have the fight with pseudo geto. It was completely awesome. It was everything I expected. And then we end with basically the next day with the rest of the world waking up and trying to figure out what the hell happened, and the government trying to figure out how they're going to tell people about cursed spirits and all that stuff. As somebody who's a fan of the SCP Foundation, I always really found it interesting when they have to do the part where it's like, okay, now we need to tell the rest of the world about all this weird shit. And then yeah, we have Yuji on the run while trying to go get back Gojo. So to wrap up, I don't know really how much more I can say about this show. It's a really good show. I enjoyed it a lot. Obviously, there was so much that I understood the hype, but just so much of it fundamentally I just did not mesh with. And have that be one of those foundational pieces of media that they now compare other pieces of media to. And I guess that's really the main message of this video. Just because something may not be made for you doesn't mean that it's bad. If anything, maybe you should just take a couple minutes, or I guess in my case, a lot of hours, to try to understand what it is you do and what it is you don't like about that thing. And honestly, me taking the time to do this was my first big media analyses, and it was really fun. It was really fun to be able to just sit down and actually let these things percolate in my brain and get all these connections in and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess this is the end. I'm very done watching TV shows for a little bit because of how many times I had to watch this show over and over. So yeah, let me know what you think. I guarantee there's gonna be at least one person who leaves a comment talking about how I hate the show, despite the fact that I spent I don't even know how much time talking about all the things that I liked. So, you know, what's the over-under on that? Infinity. But I guess that makes this the end of the video then, huh? Let me know if you want me to rabble on about other animes or TV shows or movies or music. Like, share, and subscribe, especially the liking and the sharing. My goal for this year is to get monetized so I can start supporting my family by sitting in front of this camera and talking about stuff. That would be really cool. So if you want to help me support my family through this, then like, share, and subscribe. And then tell me other things you want me to talk about so I will talk about it. And if you need anything else, I will be over here. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you spending, I don't even want to know how much time with me. But let's do it again. I can't wait to see you again. Thank you. Bye. I need a sign off.